This GeekWire podcast is brought to you by BECU. Stay tuned to the break as Brian Westbrook interviews BECU's Stacy Black for today's Money Hack about the benefits of micro-savings as part of a larger savings strategy. For more money hacks, check out geekwire.com/BECU. Hi, everybody. It's Todd Bishop from GeekWire. This week on the GeekWire podcast, my guest is Brad Anderson, a tech engineering and product leader who spent more than 17 years at Microsoft and is now approaching 5 years at Qualtrics, the experience management technology company. We'll get into what that means, where he's president of products, user experience, engineering, and security. I've known Brad for a while. In fact, I've been on 2 of his shows back when he was an enterprise and cloud technology leader at Microsoft, back in the era when it was all the rage for executives to have their own video shows. There was Lunch Break with Brad Anderson, where he drove his guests around the streets of Redmond in his Tesla.
What about the insane mode? Are you going to hit that? What happens when you hit it?
You want to try? Okay, here you go.
Whoa!
Was that insane?
Wow. Yeah, I think I'm going to puke.
Any other questions here about the car?
No, we're done with the car.
And then there was the Ship Room, where Brad talked about the cloud and played games with guests, at one point challenging me to distinguish real startup names from fake ones.
Right. Pooch Finder, a Tinder-style app that tells you your proximity to dogs that you can pet.
If that's not real, it should be.
Lunch Badger, cloud management service.
Fake.
That was real.
Oh, man, I was doing so well.
Lunch Badger.
For this week's show, I went to the Qualtrics Tower in downtown Seattle to talk with Brad Anderson about how he thinks about building technology today. But first, he reminded me about the random case of mistaken identity that brought us together in the first place back in the day. Brad, we've been talking now for more than a decade.
Yeah.
It's great to be able to reconnect with you in this environment.
It's so good to see you, Todd.
Yeah, likewise.
There are just certain aspects of your past that you just remember. And, do you remember the first time we met?
Was it in a Tesla?
No, it was before that. Let's see if you remember this.
Okay.
I saw your name come up on an article, and I had worked with a Todd Bishop.
Oh my gosh.
At Novell.
Yes.
And so I reached out to you thinking that's who you were. And so you came into my office, and I had no idea who you were. And I remember you saying, yeah, I thought it was kind of strange that a corporate vice president was reaching out to me, wanted to talk to me, so of course I'm going to come. And you know what? From there, the relationship just started.
Brad, I totally forgot about that. It's funny because I have different memories. There was the Tesla when you were recording your video series, and I freaked out. And then there was the Ship Room, but I actually have a very different memory of you that actually I still think about every single time I do Microsoft earnings. You will have no recollection of this, but we were on a break in between segments or waiting to start recording the Ship Room back in 2019, and Microsoft earnings came out. And I saw you pull your phone out, and I watched the way you looked at earnings and the specific things you were looking for related to the businesses you were running. And it's changed the way that I report on earnings because, journalists, we like to use flowery language and really approach things in, maybe a conceptual way. You wanted to know the numbers right off the bat. And it's something we talk about to this day, like first give people the data, then give them the context and the analysis. And so I have a different memory, not nearly as fun as mistaken identity.
But, I love numbers. I just love numbers, When you're looking at numbers, and in my world, it's all about usage and high quality usage. The numbers don't lie.
Right.
Either you have built something that is interesting and delivers value and therefore drives usage, or you haven't.
Right.
And if there's no usage, it doesn't matter how beautiful the architecture is if no one's getting value.
So we've got a lot to talk about. I want to talk about your overall observations on the tech industry over the last 10 years or so. I want to talk about what you're doing at Qualtrics, what you're seeing in AI and security. And I will say, in the spirit of some of the games that you used to play, the quizzes that you used to do.
You're going to get back at
on
me.
Lunch Break and the Ship Room. I have a game that I will have for you and the audience at the end called Real or Ridiculous.
There you go.
All right, so stick around to the end for that.
Yeah, the context for this, for everybody who may not be aware of what's Todd listening, when I was at Microsoft, we did these kind of 7-8 minute videos that we would post up on YouTube. And we just, we were talking about the move to the cloud and all that kind of stuff in a way that was fun. But we would always surprise the guests with quizzes and different things. And it became a big thing where everyone came in going like, how's Brad going to surprise me?
Yes.
I'll let you on a secret. It actually wasn't me. It was the team behind me writing it
Yes.
all.
Well, that's good because in this case, I got a lot of help from my team, aka ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini.
The brethren.
The triumvirate.
There you go. Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Exactly. There you go. All right. So, Brad, the last time you were on the GeekWire podcast was 2015. If you could go back today and talk to the Brad Anderson back then and say, you're not going to believe it. This is what we're going to be doing in 2025. What would you tell that prior version of yourself?
Wow, 2015. So in 2015, the move to mobile is well on. In 2015, we were still having conversations with CIOs and chief security officers about moving email and files to the cloud. And in 2015, you were still hearing like, over my dead body, am I going to move my email to your cloud? I can protect it better than you can. And so that's just kind of the starting place.
Yes.
Whereas I think about 2015, more than anything, I think that is the thing that has really, I guess, shaken me right now is just the pace of innovation. I've never, ever seen anything like it. In the early 90s, I was part of the move from the mainframe to the PC architecture. Certainly at Microsoft, I was part of the move from on-prem up into the cloud. But what's happening right now with generative AI and the agentic AI, like my team sends out a summary of what changed in the last 7 days every single Monday to the engineering team because it's moving that fast. And I've never seen anything like that. So the biggest thing that I would tell myself from 10 years ago is learn to be more agile. Understand that, you've got to move a lot faster than you've ever historically had to move because the pace of innovation and the rate at which things are getting commoditized is just off the chart.
So let's talk about how that impacts your work at Qualtrics. And let's just give people a baseline to begin with. Qualtrics, I think of as an experience management company, and I know that starts with things like surveys and data collection, but then there's so much more to it than that, especially these days. Can you give us a little bit of Qualtrics 101 before we jump into how things are changing with the advent of AI?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. So first of all, the company's just got such a unique history. It was founded by a father and two sons in their basement. The father had been diagnosed with cancer, and he was a researcher at the local university there in Provo, Utah. And so they founded a company with the goal to transform how research was done. They self-funded for the first 10 years and, built just an incredible set of capabilities. So today, here we are in 2025, and let me tell you a little bit about Qualtrics. So first, I think when most people hear the name Qualtrics, they think survey.
Yeah.
Right. And that's certainly where we got our start. And, I'm a numbers guy, as you mentioned. In the last 12 months, we had more than 1.2 billion surveys come back to us that we analyzed. That actually grew 16% year over year. Right. And so a lot of people will ask me the question of, are people survey fatigued? Yes, they are. But still, people are responding, and I'll give you some more information about this in a minute, but it's growing, and it's growing on a very, very big number.
And these are surveys that your customers, your enterprise customers, are giving to their employees, to their partners, to their customers. Yeah.
Yeah. And to give you an idea, I talk about 1.2 billion surveys. The average survey that gets put out through Qualtrics has 14 and a half questions. So that means in the last 12 months, there were more than 17 billion questions that were answered by humans that we get to use to train our data with. Okay, so that's kind of like data point number one. But what most people don't realize about Qualtrics is actually our growth is coming from unstructured, unsolicited data. So a survey is structured or solicited, and for the most part, structured. You do have some open-ended questions. But what we're seeing is incredible growth in unsolicited, unstructured data, like, for example, your calls with the call center, your chats with the call center. So anybody who has ever been on a call with the support center and there's that recording that comes on and says, this may be recorded for training purposes. Well, last year, we got 2.2 billion of those sent to us that we analyzed, and that grew 60% year over year. In the last 12 months, we've analyzed 3.5 billion different interactions between organizations and their customers, organizations and prospects, organizations and their partners and their employees. And it just gives us this incredible wealth of understanding and data. But then what we've had to do is we've had to learn how to go identify human characteristics in all of that data. And so you think about it for a minute, the world of customer experience, the philosophy or the hypothesis goes like this. If you have happier customers who are engaged, who love your brand, that's going to translate into longer lifetime value. If you've got employees who are engaged, love working for you, they're going to stay with you longer, they're going to bring in their friends, and you're going to have higher productivity, which then leads to more profit and revenue for a company. And so what we have specialized in is being able to take a look at the structured and the unstructured data and help an organization get very precise on understanding the things that they can do to make that experience incredible and continuously improve.
And I should mention, by the way, the company is co-headquartered, if I understand correctly, in Provo, Utah, and Seattle,
Correct.
Washington. We are here at Qualtrics Tower in downtown Seattle on 2nd Avenue, and this is one of the places where the technology happens.
Yeah. And about 60% of the engineering team is here in Seattle.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the center of gravity for the engineering team is in Seattle. I've got teams in Seattle, Provo, Mexico City, Western Virginia, Dublin, and Krakow, but the center of gravity is here in Seattle. So one of the great things for me is I get to come up every month and come back to where I lived for, just under 20 years when I was at Microsoft.
So you mentioned the pace of innovation changing, and then now we have this basic understanding of what Qualtrics does. How is AI changing what you're able to do with all that data that you're taking in?
Boy, there's just so much to talk about there, Todd. So let me kind of walk through some of the journeys of what I'm seeing. So first of all, we get used by researchers, by organizations that are really trying to understand what their customers and employees want from them. And, as I mentioned, 1.2 billion surveys come back. Well, we've now been able to apply AI to surveys, and it's just completely transformed surveys. Again, I joke with people, when was the last time a survey was transformed? I mean, a survey is a survey, right? Well, now by applying generative AI to a survey, it now becomes a digital interview rather than just a flat, impersonal, way to collect data.
Does that mean that the survey itself can change dynamically depending on the response?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so, for example, our AI is able to detect vague or inactionable answers when an organization is asking a question that is freeform, is open text, and then automatically adapt and prompt the user to come back with more information. Okay. So let me give you the numbers on what we found. It's remarkable. First of all, the worldwide right now, when someone starts a survey, the completion rate is 75%. So 75% of the time when an individual starts a survey, they complete it. With our Gen AI enabled surveys, what we call conversational feedback, it increases to 83%, right? So an 8-point increase, which is a 10% increase in the number of responses coming back. So AI, one of the first things it's doing is allowing organizations to get more data coming back. And that's the first question I get from just about every customer is, how do I get more data? And then the second question is, how do I get better data? And this is what's remarkable. In that Gen AI enabled survey, when we ask the follow-up question, we get 30 times the number of words back in the second response. And when we apply the lexicon rules that we have looking at the quality of the text, it's double the quality. And so with generative AI, we've been able to increase the amount of data coming back by 10% and double the quality of all of that. And it's fascinating. As we were co-innovating on this with customers, we asked a few of the customers, can we put a question at the end of your survey to get the survey takers' take on this personalized? Yeah. And what the feedback came back was, I felt seen, I felt heard, therefore I was willing to give you more data and more recommendations.
In how many of these cases do you think, or do you know, the survey taker knew that they were interacting with AI?
I don't think they knew at all.
They figured, well, perhaps this survey is just really good at figuring out something about my psyche that
I think you or I would look at that and go like, man, that was incredible branching logic, or that is AI. But it's this concept of how do you bring humanity to business? How do you make business human? And by applying these generative AI capabilities to things like a good old-fashioned survey, it now becomes, I think another way to think about it is you're getting the quality of data that you only could get before when you had a human doing an interview or a focus group, but you're doing it at the speed and the cost of a digital survey.
I want to talk about the implications of all this, but let's take a quick break. You're listening to GeekWire, and we will be right back.
Brian Westbrook with GeekWire Studios. BECU Money Hacks with the lead financial educator, Stacy Black. Let's talk about savings. We have an episode devoted to savings, living for today and saving for tomorrow. Talk about micro savings.
So the idea of micro savings is saving small amounts that add up over time. So it's less overwhelming and it feels more doable.
Very approachable savings. And BECU has a program specifically designed to help you save.
Yeah, it's called Save Up, and lots of financial institutions offer this. So check with your financial institution. It just kind of rounds up every time you buy something and transfers to your savings.
That's great. And you don't have to think about it. It's an automated program. You've got a lot more tips in this episode of BECU Money Hacks. Stacy Black, lead financial educator. We're going to watch more at geekwire.com/BECU.
Listen to the full interview and find more episodes of Money Hacks at geekwire.com/BECU and find more information at becu.org. Welcome back. My guest this week is Brad Anderson. We're catching up after a number of years. We used to talk in the past in his prior role at Microsoft. He's now the president of products, user experience, engineering, and security at Qualtrics. We're here in downtown Seattle. So, Brad, the survey is more effective at engagement. You're getting more data. Like, what happens then? How is AI transforming things after that?
So I talked about applying a conversational AI to
Yes.
to survey. We're also now applying agentic AI to a survey.
All right.
And so historically, a survey has been a way that you would collect feedback, you would collect input, but you really couldn't action it. Now by agentifying that, we can build experience agents, is what we call it. We announced these at our event in March. And those experience agents can be trained on the run books and the policies of an organization. And in the moment when an individual is giving feedback in a survey, take action to close the loop and proactively close that with the customer. And here's the huge benefit of this. Todd, think of one of your favorite, at-scale consumer brands. It could be a retailer, an airline, hotel, whatever. They get millions and millions of pieces of customer feedback a year. What percentage of them do you think they actually follow up with personally and close the loop with that individual?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Very 1 or 2%. But now agentifying it now, you're going to have a bunch of digital workers who can now supplement and enable an organization to scale that personalized, proactive reach out to close the loop with a customer or with an employee or with a prospect. I mean, the value is incredible.
So your flight is delayed by 6 hours. Instead of just an email saying, we're sorry and we'll make it up to you, here's your $50 voucher, it might be saying, what was your experience like? How can we make it better for you? Yes, Mr. Bishop, we will give you that $250 upgrade to your next flight. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great example. It could be that if you were an airline and that happens, the actions that it takes is, okay, here is a QR code that you can go to the cafeteria or to a restaurant at the hotel. Here is your voucher for a hotel. Think about that. We've all been delayed because of an issue with an airline. And then, they set you up in a hotel and all that kind of stuff. But for most people, they're waiting in line to get that done. And it's a very frustrating situation. It's not a good customer experience. If that's all automated through experience agents, you have a plane of 200 people that gets delayed. The agents can go automatically take care of all that and interact with the individual in a very personal way.
Okay, so that's on the product side. And I recognize here, I probably just inadvertently led you to land some new enterprise customers through this conversation. So you're welcome. You're welcome. That was a good pitch. Good pitch. I should probably
Always be selling, right?
Poking some holes in it. Okay. Now, how about on the engineering side? Can you give me a sense for how AI is transforming your engineering workforce, the kinds of engineers you're looking for, the people you're retaining, and what they're able to do in terms of productivity?
Yeah, profound. Just profound impacts. So let's start with how we're using AI. So first of all, all of our engineering team are using, AI tools like Cursor. And what we're seeing is remarkable. What we're seeing right now is Cursor is literally generating millions of lines of new code for us. And of course, at this point right now, it's AI generated, human reviewed, human approved, human corrected. But we're seeing a 45% of all that code that's being generated, we're checking into the product.
45%.
45%. which I think is amazing.
Yes.
And if you were to ask me the question, what are the 2 or 3 top places where the AI battles are being waged at? Coding, I think, would be number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2 is probably customer service. And so I am very happy with what I'm seeing right now in the AI tools that are helping our people to get things done faster. And so, some people may ask, well, Brad, do you need fewer engineers? No, that's not the way I think about it. I think I can get more done faster now because my people can get more done.
It's interesting. I had this kind of revelation about 3 months ago when I talked to Aaron Levy on this podcast.
Love Aaron.
And my comment to him was, he's big on AI agents. And I asked him, well, you're having these agents work overnight for you on these key questions for Box and all this stuff. And like, so are you just sort of, going off to Lake Tahoe now to ski? And and his point was, no, it's like the possibilities are so much more that he's actually working more in some respects. And I'm wondering.
And accomplishing more.
Right. Does that translate to your product and engineering teams as well?
Yeah, it does. I'll give you another example. Some of the new tools that are coming out where if you're a UX designer, you can now go create a prompt and describe what you want created. Not only will it generate, for example, what the image looked like, but it puts it into code and checks it into GitHub.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now you could have a UX designer who literally goes out and describes what it is that they're trying to do, what it needs to accomplish, the look and feel, and it creates code that gets checked into GitHub, and then the engineers are off running on it. And so it just dramatically shrinks the time to get things out to market.
How does that impact your process of planning and prioritization? Because it feels like you've got this green field all of a sudden. You could do almost anything because you're still operating within constraints. How do you choose as an organization what you go after in this world of kind of unlimited possibilities?
Well, it starts with, like any organization, you've got a limited set of resources. And so, we assign out, my leadership and we assign out budgets to each of the different product units that we have inside of the team. And then quite honestly, you've got product managers who are assigned and lined up with, let's say, a Scrum team. That product manager is the keeper of the priority list, and they can change that priority list whenever they want to.
Okay.
So as new ideas come in, new threats, new concepts, that backlog changes every single day. And then what happens is when an engineer rolls off of what they're working on, they just go take the next item on the backlog. But the product managers are fully empowered and expected to be able to make the right decisions. And so that's the only way that you can do this is I think you've got to have an agile process where you've got individuals who have proven judgment of making the right calls on where to invest the scarce resources at. And that's what, a great product manager does.
So what are the next big challenges that you see in this realm? I know security is one issue that tends to come up, especially when you're talking about people who are not engineers generating the code to begin with that the engineers then work with.
Yeah.
I know you're probably not at the point of having employees doing vibe coding, but this is kind of what you were talking about a little bit when you're describing what the UX.
It's going there.
Yes. How do you ensure that things are still secure for yourself, for Qualtrics, and for your customers?
Yeah, it's a combination of tools and people. The tools that have come out to help validate and verify security are remarkable. I mean, look at, we're just in the process right now of moving on to Wiz, and I love being on Wiz. One, of this great product, and two, we know the founder because Microsoft bought one of his first company before in Adalom. So you've got technology that at incredible scale can help you identify the common things, right? But in this world of AI generating code, you have to have engineers who are looking at it and have the background and the skill set and the capabilities to be able to understand where there are issues, where there are not issues, what's quality, what's not quality. So that starts to lead you to a discussion of, does the profile of what I need change? And so, for example, over the last couple of years, we have raced to hire as many entry-level engineers as we could, because these entry-level engineers who are coming out of college, quite honestly, know how to use the AI tools better than the veterans.
Interesting. Right.
Right. So it's been a focus on fingers on the keyboard with individuals who are more AI proficient than what we already have in the building.
That's interesting, because then on the other side, you've got the ones with the experience who've seen all the
and
issues.
are better at reviewing the code.
Oh, so that's how you're splitting it up.
Well, that's an ongoing debate right now. Like, do we need fewer entry level and more of the mid level?
Where do you think that's going to shake out?
I think as an industry, there will be fewer entry level. If an organization, like you need to have a typical pyramid, if a typical pyramid for an engineering organization is that 20%, 15% of their engineers were entry level,
Yeah.
that probably goes down by 3 to 5% over the next couple of years.
I had a conversation with the CFO of a large publicly traded company here in the Seattle region just recently, where it was described as the pyramid is becoming a vertical pipe organizationally.
Yep.
What does that do long term, though? Because this gets into the whole idea of grassroots, bringing people up. The pool of people at the bottom will be smaller, so therefore are you missing out on people who would eventually make it to the top of what used to be the pyramid?
Yeah, so I think the key thing is it's not going to zero. If you're going from 15% to 12% being
Right.
at that entry level, you've still got plenty of opportunity. And the organizations that are doing interesting things that are intriguing to engineers are going to be able to attract the engineers that are those kind of people you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, we talk about security. Let me kind of let me give you a little bit of idea about what what we're doing here and what concerns me. Think about the data that customers are sending to us right now. Think about what gets sent to us in the calls with customers from a bank, from a healthcare system, from an insurance company. You've got all kinds of very private data that is coming in, and we have to protect it. And so, when most people think about Qualtrics, they don't think, oh, wow, I didn't know that Qualtrics was getting hundreds of millions of phone call recordings that are being sent to us that we then transcribe and analyze that has this kind of sensitive information in it. And, so we've spent a lot of time out meeting with chief security officers and trying to understand where they sit in terms of not only, embracing us as a partner to do that, but allowing us to use their data that's been anonymized and aggregated to train our own AI models. And so here's what we found in the research, what I think you'll find interesting. Somewhere in the high teens of the CSOs that we spoke with, these are of organizations, let's say with more than 5,000 employees, 17, 18% say, no way right now, you cannot use our data, anonymized and aggregated to train your models.
Even with those assurances.
Even with those assurances, just like very black and white. And for the other 82%, well, it depends. Do I trust you or not?
Right.
Do I trust that you are going to protect the customer employee data that I'm sending you?
And it's not necessarily about your intent. It's about your skills and your ability to protect that data.
That's right. And so an organization that has had a breach, an organization that has had some kind of a security issue, that decreases trust. And if you ask yourself the question, who are going to be the organizations that are going to thrive in this world of AI? I would argue it's going to be the organizations that business leaders trust.
So how do you give people that assurance?
Great question. And I wish I had the immediate answer. I mean, I think the world is trying to understand this. First of all, you have to be able to have a very, very specific set of controls and guardrails that you put in place, but you publish, right? And so like many companies, we've got a security center. So you go to qualtrics.com/trust and all of, that you can get in there and look at all the data, those kind of pieces. I do believe that third-party certifications and compliances speak a lot as well. Okay, so let me give you a very, very specific example. We are one of only 53 companies on the planet that has received certification by the U.S. government in what's called FedRAMP High. And with FedRAMP High, what that allows the U.S. government to do is use our capabilities even into the organizations that have 3 letters in their names. And so it is a very, very hard compliance to actually get certified on. Multiple years of work for us to do this. Now, let me give you a very specific example without naming the company. I was on a call with the chief security officer from a well-known bank in the U.S., and the conversation was kind of like this. This individual was trying to set my expectations that we were going to be low on their priority list to go through the certification process, their own certification process to use our AI. Okay. In that conversation, I just happened to mention, well, hey, in the next week or two, we're going to be publishing that we've received FedRAMP High certification. And the whole tone changed. And the chief security officer said, really? Is that true? I said, yeah. You know what? This is going to accelerate everything. And so that's an example of how, these really tough certifications to get are baselines that many organizations will look at.
How hard was it to get that certification? How long did it take, and what did you have to do?
It literally touched every single one of the feature teams in the company. it was 3 years of really hard work. But it's interesting. It is a huge competitive advantage for anybody that has it because it is very hard to get.
All right. When we come back, I do want to play real or ridiculous.
You got it.
And I want to ask you a little bit about your own usage of AI and how it's shaping your own work as an executive and company leader. That's coming up next on the GeekWire podcast. Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop. I'm here this week with Brad Anderson. He is the president of products, user experience, engineering, and security at Qualtrics, the experience management technology company. We're here at Qualtrics Tower in downtown Seattle. And as we were saying at the beginning, Brad, you used to do in your role at Microsoft some fun video series and podcasts. One of them was called Lunch Break with Brad Anderson. And another one was called The Ship Room. And I think you perfected the approach by the time you got to the ship room. And you had the team that would come up with these crazy quizzes. And one was Buzzword Bingo, where we had to take very outlandish phrases and put them into sentences. And so in that spirit, my quiz for you here, Brad, and for the listeners out there, we'll have a little fun with this. You can play along, is real or ridiculous? Are these cloud and AI buzzwords real industry terms or just expertly crafted nonsense?
Oh, my word, this sounds fun.
All right, so here, let's start it off with, we got 7 of them. Number 1, quantum cloud orchestration, a system that manages and schedules workloads for quantum computers hosted in the cloud. Quantum cloud orchestration, Brad Anderson, real or ridiculous?
I can actually see the need for it, but I'm going to say this one is ridiculous.
This one is, in fact, fake. While quantum cloud services do exist in preliminary form,
the orchestration isn't there yet.
The orchestration at this level is not a real term yet. Did I give you the answers on there?
No.
Okay, you repeated exactly what ChatGPT said the actual answer would be.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Maybe ChatGPT is listening into too many of my phone calls.
Yeah, what are they training their data
Exactly.
on? Exactly. Do they have that compliance?
I'm going to see if next time I go to my phone, if quantum cloud orchestration comes up in my Instagram
Oh my gosh.
feed.
No, but you're going to get a Facebook ad
That's right.
for quantum cloud orchestration out.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Federated learning. This is number 2. Federated learning, a machine learning approach where a shared model is trained across multiple decentralized devices or servers, keeping the data local. Real or ridiculous?
That one feels real.
That's right. That's right.
It's really intriguing.
Yes. In fact, they say, ChatGPT says this is a widely used privacy preserving machine learning technique.
Yeah, and it makes sense because if you think about where we're going to end up in this world, there's not going to be one large language model or one agent that rules them all. We're going to live in a world of lots and lots of models, millions and billions of models. We'll do this for a whole host of reasons, but they'll all get used in a way that brings the best of what each one of them offers and then provides the organization that is using that combination with the next best action and the next answer. So I love this one because I think this is actually a very real thing.
Yes. I think a lot of us are doing this manually today, where we'll take an answer from one, put it in another, use Claude. I use Claude for a lot of UI, UX stuff because I know it's really good at the presentation layer, and then I'll feed it data from ChatGPT. But if that, in this case, were federated and especially, obviously this is about training, not inference. I'm actually mixing two different things.
It's about training, but at the same time, you get the best of multiple models with a level of security that your data is never leaving, your cloud or your tenant.
Right.
And so there's a lot of real important promises in federated learning.
Okay, number 3, cognitive load balancing, an advanced load balancing technique that uses AI to predict and distribute network traffic based on the cognitive state of individual users.
That's definitely ridiculous in my opinion.
Yes, fake, total jargon, though vaguely believable, ChatGPT says.
Yeah, exactly. Now when you go to the cognitive state of the individual users, the experience management person to me is going like, okay, so how are they identifying and pinpointing the cognitive state of the individual?
Well, not yet, maybe. Maybe that's what Neuralink is about.
Yeah, and maybe you just gave me the next great idea for experience management.
Yes, exactly. All right, number 4, serverless AI inference. running AI model predictions without managing the underlying servers, scaling automatically based on demand.
Isn't that just the way it always works?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yes. This actually harkens back
This
to
is like
maybe
a question
10
from
years
10
ago.
years ago.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I feel like I'm listening to Mark Rusinovich.
I got to tell you a funny story about that sometime.
Okay. All right.
The funny story there, I was sitting at a restaurant on a Friday night, and I got a call from Jim Alchin saying, I just negotiated with Russ to buy his company. You go close it and figure out where we can use the technology inside of the company.
You're responsible?
I wasn't responsible for it. I was the corporate vice president that kind of took it to completion and tried to figure out where we could use the technology.
I feel like I need to give people footnotes on this. Jim Alchin, longtime platform chief at Microsoft, responsible for varying versions of Windows. And Mark Rusinovich, what was the name of the company that he ran before he joined the company?
I can't remember what company it was, but the Inside Windows, right, was the name of the...
Winternals.
Winternals, that's what it was. Thank you.
Yes, and
the authoritative source that even Microsoft engineers about how Windows worked.
Yes.
And he did it all from the outside. He basically reverse engineered how Windows operates from the outside. I mean, remarkable.
Brilliant guy.
Yeah.
I heard him speak just a couple months ago. He's now the Microsoft Azure CTO, if I understand correctly, and has a lot of interesting takes on sort of the realities and the limitations of AI, really, in terms of the potential for it to upend programming. You're a little more bullish, actually, than he is on where, Copilot style programming will go long term.
Yeah, and but hopefully before we end, I can give you a little bit of data in terms of what I'm seeing in terms of adoption of AI within our own tools.
Yes, you've got a lot of direct observations of what's going on.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Number 5, hyper-personalized edge AI microservices. A highly granular AI architecture that delivers customized intelligent services directly on edge devices, tailored to individual user preferences in real time.
It just feels like there's too many buzzwords in this. And so I'm going to say ridiculous.
What? So ChatGPT says buzzword mashup,
Oh, my word.
real world, all real words, no real implementation.
Yeah. Now, had they maybe left out edge or microservices, yeah, definitely ridiculous.
Okay, so that's fake as well. Number 6, Sentient Cloud Nexus, a fully automated cloud infrastructure capable of self-awareness and independent decision-making, optimizing its own operations without human intervention.
Isn't this called AGI?
Yes.
So I'm going to say that one's ridiculous too.
ChatGPT says sci-fi, conscious cloud, not yet. Okay. All right. Last one, number 7. And this might strike a chord with you.
Okay.
All right. You ready for this? Based on your current role. Emotion-centric journey taxonomy, a proprietary framework for categorizing user sentiment patterns across multi-channel experience touchpoints, enabling micro adjustments to brand resonance in real time. And I gotta say, this kind of sounds like what you were describing earlier.
No, it is. It is. You think about it. We uniquely can help an organization understand what the customer experience is in the digital experience, in the in-person, in a store experience, what's happening when they call the call center, and help understand that entire end-to-end journey, which is what this is talking about.
Yeah.
And one of the key things that we look for is in that unstructured data, we're able to identify 57 different emotions: fear, anxiety, joy. And so, I mean, like as I'm reading this, that's what we do.
So the phrase is emotion-centric journey taxonomy, and it's defined as a proprietary framework for categorizing user sentiment patterns across multi-channel experience touchpoints, enabling micro adjustments to brand resonance in real time.
So we do this, and so this one's real.
Okay. So ChatGPT came up with this on its own and described it as fake. It's called it a satirical take on Qualtrics style experience lingo.
Did it really?
Yes.
That is hysterical. Let me see that.
They got you nailed.
Did you just laugh when you saw this?
Yes. And I have to say, I'm saying that ChatGPT came up with these. I spent a lot of time, and this is how I use AI. I'm giving it ideas. I'm saying, no, do this, do this. I'm not just waving a magic wand. I'm working through, and I came up with 30 different phrases, and I boiled them down, gave them to Gemini, gave them to Claude. And so I am curious in that vein. And by the way, I will put these in the post on this podcast so people can enjoy them as well in written form. But I am curious, Brad, maybe as we wind down here, are you using AI in your day-to-day work? And if so, is it changing how you work or interact with your team, or is it changing at all how you interact with your kids and your family?
Well, if you were to ask my kids, they would say that I am obsessed with ChatGPT.
Really?
Oh yeah, I am one of the 400 million daily active users. I'm probably one of the 400 million hourly active users.
What do you do?
For me, I love trivia. I love history. I love numbers. I love research, and it's just such a fast and easy way to get that satisfaction, right? And I don't have to scroll through ads. It's just instant, right? So that's just kind of on my personal side, what I do. I'll give you another example. I was flying through LA a couple of weeks ago, and LA's got this new Delta One lounge.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I walk in there. They have massage chairs in there. So I sit down at this massage chair. It was amazing. Like I hadn't sat in a massage chair for a decade. And so I got out of there and I started asking on ChatGPT, what are the best massage chairs by user, emotion and stuff that came back. And then I said, all right, where can I buy that one for the cheapest price? And it pointed me to Costco, and so that's an example of, but I do love it. I absolutely love ChatGPT. People, I remember in the early days of mobile, go back, to 2010, 11, 12, when like the concepts of app stores and stuff were just coming out. One of the common questions people would ask is, what's your favorite app? Without a doubt, mine is ChatGPT.
What you just said is really interesting, and people who listen regularly to the podcast will remember a couple weeks ago we talked with Colin Sebastian, the analyst who covers Amazon and Alphabet and Meta, and one of the points he made was based on their surveys at Baird. They have seen a huge shift from TikTok to ChatGPT as one of the primary drivers of e-commerce, and you literally just illustrated that.
Yeah, it's real.
Okay, so what about in your day-to-day work with your team?
I do use it every day. So I'll give you a couple of just really simple examples. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Yeah. I think it's a good way for any organization to be able to kind of get details out about what they're doing. And what I've learned over the years of doing this is, individuals in the industry want to follow both companies and individuals. And so one of the things I've always tried to do is how do you get that balance right of being personal, being human, but also being professional? Right. And, a lot of times when I would sit down to write a blog, I'd spend 15 or 20 minutes maybe writing it. Well, now I just go into like Gemini or ChatGPT, I literally just dictate it. I just press the mic button on my phone. I dictate a few things and it pops out, a blog post, or it pops out what I can put on LinkedIn. And I've got that up and running in less than 5 minutes.
But you're starting with your own thoughts and your own material. Absolutely. And it's putting polish on it and presenting it in the way that you are instructing it to present it.
Yeah. And so I'll just kind of give it a bunch of numbers. All right, here's what I'm seeing. I'll give you an example. Let's just walk through what we went through before. On these generative AI enabled surveys, 8% higher response rate, double the quality of the words that come back in the language, double the insights that come back that are actionable. So I'll just dictate a bunch of those and then give it the context and the prompt of, give me a post that I can put on LinkedIn that focuses on the increased responses and the increased quality of the responses that comes back, with the numbers being the centerpiece of the post. And it comes back and, of course I'll tweak it a little bit, but it just saves. I get it done in 80% less time.
It's really amazing. Yeah. And to me, I think that the challenge is you describe that to somebody who's not immersed in the world of AI, and they get nervous because they feel like the AI is doing the work for you. But for me, it ends up engaging my cognitive abilities on a different level. I'm able to think about it at a higher level and still be involved in the nitty gritty and the editing and all that sort of thing. But it's a different world.
Yeah, I'll give you two more examples of how I use it. We had an offsite with my leadership team last week. Like most offsites, you'll write a 4 or 5, 6 pager in kind of the old Amazon style. I did that in less than 20 minutes using Gemini.
Okay, so do you feel like you're still getting the same value out of the process when you do that? Because that is the whole point of the Amazon 6-pager. It's not so much the product, it's the process and the learnings that come from not only reading, but writing those documents. Do you feel like you're still getting that same level of value when you do something
I do, and it goes into the amount of the quality. The quality of the documents that come out is entirely based upon the quality of the prompt that you put in.
Yes.
And so, if you were to ask me, or if I was talking with a set of college students or high school students and saying, what are the things that you should get really good at? Man, you should get really good at writing prompts.
Interesting.
Because it doesn't matter if you're in finance, if you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be in engineering. That's the new world.
Yeah. I was talking with a aspiring young, straight out of college, journalist just recently, and I said, "Well, are you using ChatGPT? Are you using Claude?" And he responded with a very college mindset. He said, "Oh, not much." You could tell that he had been scolded by some of his teachers. Don't do these things. And I said, no. You're entering the working world now. That's actually going to be of value to the employers that you're talking to, as long as you're not cutting corners or you're not doing things that are going to cheapen the product in the end. If you're using it to be more efficient and productive and smarter, it's better.
Yeah, I'll give you a real world example of that. Our youngest son will graduate in December. He's going into data science. And he is working as an intern this summer for a startup. There's 3 employees, and he's the summer intern. And when he went through the interview process, they gave him some engineering problems to go solve. He went and solved it using AI. And when he came back in and showed them the results, they asked him the process that he had gone through. And he proudly said, "I used these AI tools. Here's the prompt that I wrote." And the founder said, "That's exactly right. That's what we want to see."
Very cool. Very interesting. Yeah.
And so
the whole world is changing.
Yeah, right. I think some people would well, I don't want to tell them I use ChatGPT. Is that cheating? No, that's the tools, and that's how organizations and individuals are going to get work done now. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me give you another example. One of the things you always look for as a leader is what things are changing and what are the best practices in organizational design, in culture, in reward systems, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I've spent hours and hours inside of ChatGPT just asking questions such as, hey, if you were the president of a 1,500 person organization with revenue in the multiple billions, going through it and basically describe who we are at Qualtrics, what would you do if you wanted to significantly increase the capabilities and the skill set of the engineering team in AI? And it comes back with and you just go deeper and you go deeper. And I may not have all the answers, but boy, it puts things in your mind. It gives you ideas and stuff. So I have found it to be just an incredible, co-pilot is one way to say it, but just an incredible partner in helping me understand what I need to do with the organization, with the structure, with the culture, with the tools, with the training. And it's invaluable.
You once told me that having 5 kids, geez, this was still
wow,
5.
you've got a good memory.
Yeah. You once told me that having 5 kids taught you patience. Has your leadership style changed in
Yes.
this new phase of your career?
Absolutely.
In what way?
And it's changed dramatically in the last year. Let me tell you why.
Oh,
We have a new granddaughter who was born in September and came with the surprise of Down syndrome. And, it just was a surprise. And it's like one of the first times I remember, being a father and going up to see our daughter after the baby had been born. And I didn't know what words to say. But oh my gosh, she has become the center of our lives. There's just this incredible light about her. And it's just given me a whole bunch more empathy and understanding about what it means to be a human. And I think that's a big part of how I lead. I want to be seen as someone, I hope when the record or when the books are written about Brad, that's facetious, obviously.
Yes.
But when people talk about Brad, I hope that they will say he competed with integrity and he cared for the customers and he cared for his people. And, having children, and now we have 6 grandchildren, one with special needs, it just gives you a different perspective, and it gives you a much, kind of longer term perspective about what is value. So the last thing I would say is I still get asked almost every week, why did I leave Microsoft and come to Qualtrics?
yeah.
It was a hard decision, Todd. Zig and I knew each other at Microsoft. Zig Serafin is our CEO. He was at Microsoft for 17 years. I was there for just under 18 years. We overlapped by 14 years. But we went back and looked at it. I think we spoke 5 times in those 14 years that we overlapped.
Yeah.
But he moved to Utah and he started reaching out immediately saying, why don't you come move back home
Yeah.
where you and my wife, Kim, were both born and raised at and help us grow this company. And I thought, no, I'm never going to leave Microsoft. I love what I'm doing. I've got incredible loyalty to the leadership team here. And this, Microsoft was just so good to me. The pandemic hits, and I think a lot of us had a chance to kind of reflect on what's important, what do we want to do with the time that we have left, right? And so when Zig and Ryan Smith, the founder, reached out in kind of the middle of 2020, what really hit me was who gets a chance to go back to their hometown where they and their partner are from, help a company be successful. And as you do that, you uplift your community economically. Like, that's a very personal mission. And that's the biggest thing that brought me to Qualtrics.
Interesting. So you grew up in Provo.
Yeah, my wife and I both grew up there.
What's it been like being back?
It's been, I didn't think we would ever move back, you know, but it's just fantastic. Two of our two oldest daughters are there. That's where the 6 grandchildren are. They live about 7 minutes away from us. And so we get to be a big part of their lives. My wife's the oldest of 9 children. And so we get to have all of her siblings around us, 2 of my siblings are there. And so it's been great. And at the point I'm at in my life, that family is important. We've kind of become the patriarchs because both sets of our parents have passed away. And so it's been able to enable us to step into this role where we can really bring everyone together and just have, great memories.
Brad Anderson, thank you very much for sitting down with me.
My pleasure, Todd. It's good to see you.
Likewise. Thanks for listening, everybody. Curt Milton edited this episode. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop. We'll be back next week with a new episode of the GeekWire podcast.